My name is Connie, and I'll be presenting the results of my PhD project on a meta-analysis of functional connectivity and network changes in youth MDD. So, almost 37% of MDD occur before the age of 25 years, and early onset MDD is associated with pervasive functional impairment. It is also a risk factor for more severe and persistent clinical course and treatment resistance and suicidal behaviors. It is therefore unsurprising that unipolar depressive disorders represent a leading cause of disability due to mental health conditions for those aged 10 to 24 years worldwide. As a result of the high prevalence and poor clinical prognosis, a number of studies have investigated functional connectivity changes in youth MDD. However, divergent findings have been reported, with some reporting selective regional involvement, while others reporting more widespread involvement. And a similar pattern of divergence is evident in systematic review and meta-analysis findings as well. In adult MDD, inter- and intra-network disruptions have been implicated and thought to underline central symptoms of MDD. For example, the default mode network in rumination, limbic network in altered emotional processing, dorsal attention network in altered attention allocation, and ventral attention network in altered salient events detection. And lastly, central executive network in dysregulation of emotional and attentional processes. However, in youth MDD, a recent network-based meta-analysis have highlighted methodological differences, especially in the seed regions used in past studies, as well as the report of diverse sets of networks implicated in past findings, with no clear consensus. It is clear that a robust understanding of the functional connectivity changes of youth MDD remains to be established, and mega-analysis of raw multi-site fMRI data may be one potential solution. It offers the advantages of greater statistical power, improved generalizability, whilst avoiding confounding impacts associated with heterogeneous preprocessing and analysis pipeline inherent to meta-analyses. However, several have been conducted in adult MDD, but none has been conducted in youth MDD. This leads me to the aims of my study. We collated a large-scale raw resting state MRI dataset from 7 cohorts scanned at 6 sites across 4 countries, involving 440 young people with depression and 370 healthy controls. Leveraging the largest sample size to date, we used a data-driven approach across the whole brain to establish robust functional connectivity and network markers of youth MDD. We hypothesized that widespread default mode attentional, central executive, and limbic network involvement will similarly be observed in youth MDD. We apply a standardized processing pipeline to all the raw data. This involved preprocessing using fMRI prep. And after stringent head motion exclusion, 132 patients and 110 healthy controls were excluded. We then used established LSCs to map the whole brain connectomes, followed by combat harmonization before further analyses. Given the great statistical power, we adopted a data-driven whole brain-based statistical inference to identify functional connections that differ significantly between the MDD and healthy control groups, as well as to identify functional connections that associate significantly with depression severity. We then examined the underlying network changes to detect salient networks. We also built a predictive model of diagnostic status and symptom severity with leave one side out cross-validation. As you can see in the table, there were significant differences in age, sex, and symptom severity. As a result, these age, sex, and site were included as covariates in all analyses. On to results. So youth MDD demonstrated distinct patterns of hyper and hyperconnectivity based on the total number of significant connections. Salient regions emerged for inferior parietal, superior parietal, and insular regions, and assigning these significant connections to their respective canonical networks, we saw a predominant pattern of dorsal and ventral attentional network involvement. And youth MDD also demonstrated significantly decreased connectivity, with core regions of the DMN emerge as salient regions, including the SGC, PCC, MPFC, and also limbic network regions, including the temporal pole and orbitofrontal cortex. And consistently on the network level, default mode network and limbic network emerge as key networks. Next, we investigated whether functional connectivity might be associated with depression symptom severity, and we found that heightened connectivity of, again, the parietal regions and insular regions were associated with higher depression symptom severity. And consistently on the network level, the DAN and VAN again emerged as salient networks. In terms of negative association, DMN again emerged as the core network, with the precuneus, MPFC, and angular gyrus being implicated. And consistent with our between group results, DMN again emerged as a key network, demonstrating decoupling with central executive and both dorsal and ventral attentional networks. Our predictive model was able to distinguish our patients from healthy controls with an average accuracy of 73.1% as measured by the overall AUC across all held out sites. And symptom severity could also be predicted with significant R value of 0.14 across all held out sites. Upon inspection of the feature weights, we found that positive association was primarily driven by, again, parietal regions, whereas negative association was primarily driven by, again, the DMN regions encompassing the MPFC, superior temporal, and PCC regions. So in summary, across all levels of analysis, MPFC, ACC, PCC, lateral parietal, and insular regions emerge as salient regions. And interestingly, these regions have been implicated as hub regions, and they are thought to be vulnerability hotspots to dysfunction. As a result, youth characterized by a period of dramatic brain changes and significant psychosocial transitions may represent a unique window of vulnerability to functional hub system disintegration, and in turn altered network dynamics. And from our findings, there was evidence of strong default mode and dorsal and ventral attentional network involvement, similar to that observed in adult MDD. In youth MDD, this was characterized by decreased functional connectivity between the DMN and the dorsal-ventral attentional network, as well as the central executive network, in addition to heightened inter-network connectivity between the DAN and VAN. And more critically, mean connectivity strength across these significant connections was associated with greater depression symptom severity. And the stronger the anti-correlation between the DMN and the DAN, VAN, and CEN was associated with, again, more severe depression symptoms. So this may mean that in youth MDD, there is an inhibition of executive and attentional regulation of introspective processes, in addition to heightened attention and detection of emotionally salient information. And this may mean the development of maladaptive ruminative tendencies and biased representations and appraisals of emotional events. With that, I would like to thank my supervisors for their endless support and patience, and as well as the contribution of these very valuable data from all the collaborators that made this project possible. And if you have any questions about any aspects of the study or are interested in collaboration, you can drop me an email or come by my poster stand at 554, and thank you.
Connie, that was a wonderful talk, a great set of analyses. I have a a question about the sort of maturation of the networks you're looking at. So you're looking at youth depression. The sample is sort of, if I remember correctly, on the older range of adolescence. If you had a sample that covered the full range of childhood to adolescence, would you expect the same patterns? So for instance, default network matures a bit later over the course of adolescence. So.
Yeah, so as you have alluded to, given the neurodevelopmental changes associated with different age spans, I probably would expect different patterns of functional connectivity alteration associated with these different age groups in MDD, but I don't have a definite answer to be able to answer that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank the audience for their attendance and the speakers for their wonderful talks. Have a great lunch, everybody.